the most difficult thing to understand is really why do you want to achieve a certain goal, right? But like a reason why a lot of people do fail is because they lack confidence, they don't try. The reality is that like most things are also a lot harder than you think they're going to be. Once you understand those principles and you're hardworking, you can literally do anything you want in life. I feel like a repeat offender and I get invited back. I must have done a reasonable job on the first one, so it's it's a good thing to get invited back, I guess.
I think that's when we started working together, actually. It was March time, so 6 months ago.
Yeah, it was wild. And it's funny how things have changed. Not to go too off topic, but like your business has come a long way in that period of time. And even the conversation we had before this, start putting this on live now. Like if you'd said that to yourself 6 months ago, it's a reframe, right? And Harry Knight's put a post up in the group talking about this yesterday, the day before, which I was like, that's fucking sick. Because for me, whether it's with your business or your fitness journey, surrounding yourself with other people who are crushing it is the secret. Because once you get proof of concept, you see someone else is doing it. Like if he can fucking do it, I can do it. If she can get in shape, I can get in shape. Because you know it can be done, right?
100%. I think it's like how sometimes people don't set a goal until they see someone else achieve it, and they're like, they've done that, I'll go try achieve it now at the same time. So definitely relate to the fact, because I think when we started working together, it was more of a case I was in an environment, I was like, it's not supporting the next level, and being in the next level environment is just like, gets you thinking differently, gets you doing differently. And as much as it's been like from a mentoring role, I think a lot of it has been like personal development. And when we got a training session in, which actually we'll dive into the podcast as well, but when we got the training session in person, something he said to me, which really stuck with me, was like, a lot of it is just personal development, and it actually is. So,
and that's actually the same in terms of people listening to us getting shape for fitness, because you're only going to physically grow to like building your biceps or whatever to where your mind believes you can go, or you're only going to lift something if you believe you can do it. Same in terms of growing your business. Like if you don't believe it's possible, it will never happen. And the more experience I get in different things in life, the more I realize that, and also the more I'm very, very selective of who I listen to, who I hang around with, or the information I take in, because you don't want that to affect your mindset and your view of the world, because the way you look at everything is based upon the information that's put in front of you. So like me and Irtaza were joking before the podcast that like the background of this podcast looks really crap, but if I was to flip my desk around how it used to be, behind the screen and behind the camera, there's a sick view I'm looking at of like boats going past the marina, because I like looking out the window now. But that mindset shift for me, moving from the UK to Dubai, to seeing that as like wild, because that for me like changes my perspective of what normal is and raises it to a higher standard. So then I work myself to a higher standard, if that makes sense.
100%. I think like one of the main reasons why to get you on the podcast, and like the first topic I wanted to dive into, is because coming up to Q4, there are like I kind of see it as that separation season, when it's dark, when it's cold, when whatever's happening in the climate is that happening. I think a lot of people tend to either go with the flow or actually go against the flow, and then when you go against the flow, it's like separates you from what everyone else is doing, so you get what nobody else has got. For Q4, what's your fitness goals to dive into that? Just firstly, I think a lot of people.
That's a good question. So at the moment, I did a really big growth phase from November last year till pretty much July or June. So at the moment, I'm just recomping. I've come down from 110 to about 105 kilos. I'll probably keep chipping away for the next week or two, but part of me is inclined just to keep going, get really lean again, and then bulk up. A part of me just like wants to start sooner. So I'm not quite sure on that, but at the moment, I've actually taken my training volume back down from 5 days a week to 4, and I'm seeing better results. And I've also gotten a weird obsession with peptides and experimenting with that and just like maximizing human performance. So like, not to make me sound like a drug addict, but like, just like where's the marginal gains of things, right? So like I'll give an example, and this is a bit of a slippery slope to go down, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So if anyone's seen the film Limitless, have you seen the film Limitless?
Yeah.
Okay, so like the film Limitless is basically based on a drug called modafinil. It's basically like a brain drug that makes your synapses fire in your brain faster so you can focus more. It's fucking wild. I have taken it before. I hadn't taken it for a long time, and I have started like taking very small amounts. Modafinil tablets, 200 milligrams. I've started like doing like 25 milligrams, almost like an eighth of a tablet. And I noticed a fucking massive difference. Like yesterday, I recorded 4 podcasts back to back in the studio, and your focus is just insane. So days I'm not training, I'm trying to take a really low dose of that and just see how I feel. It makes me feel superhuman. But I do notice that, long story short, the first time I took it like years ago, I thought I had insomnia and I couldn't sleep because it messes with your sleep. But I took like the whole 200 milligrams, right? Like things in small doses, I think you can get away with, and it's just not testing. Like for me, it's like life is about testing and how far can you push the limits with some things. Some things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I've actually taken modafinil a few times. I think I took 15 milligrams, and it's actually quite handy. I find like when I first took it, I was in university. I literally remember I was out for a meal when I was studying for maths, and my mate was, "Oh, I'll take this." I was like, "Cool, took it." Then I was like, "Should have asked what it was," and then I asked, "What is it?" And it was, "Oh, it's modafinil. It's going to help you focus." And I think that day I didn't even go back home until like the afternoon. That day I took it at like 12 p.m. and then the next day at 1 p.m. I went back home, and I was like, straight 24 hours studying. It's mental. I think we took 200 milligrams, but it does kill your appetite. I think like with anything, like a double-edged sword. I'm not sure.
It's interesting you notice that actually. So like when I took it on Monday, I was like, I have no interest in eating. I was like, that's really fucking weird.
Yeah.
It super crushes your appetite. So not like if you're in a weight loss phase, you should take modafinil, but like it does help. Yeah, it helps, right?
100%. For you, let's kind of dive into like, I think with the goal setting process, there's a lot of confusion about how to set goals. And I think there's two sides of the coin I can dive into this. One is like, I think I told you I went to Bali 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I remember on the journey back, there was like a 2-hour journey. We went to go to waterfalls. On the journey back, it was actually 9 hours. So we were in the car, there was like 7 of us, and everyone's like goal driven and like they actually really want to push themselves. So we were like, we're literally going to be sat here. Let's just everyone go around, tell everyone what you want personally, professionally, and everyone break down someone else's goals. And I remember like my goals were actually a case of like, there were some outcome goals, but most of them like process oriented when it came to physique. It was like, I want to get away from flexible dieting. I want to look into like the training intensity that I applied in Bali. I want to apply year round and like some habits and formations. And I think I kind of stepped back and I was like, shit, I just said who I want to become, not what do I want to achieve. And it's like, I was like, that's actually really interesting. I mean, obviously, when it came to business, it was a different scenario. But for you, with the goal setting standpoint, how do you set goals? Would be something I think a lot of people take value from. Because mine has always been a case of like, yes, some outcomes, but then you measure it through who you need to become as opposed to what you need to do.
So what you said there was very interesting because who you become defines what you achieve, right? So like you can't have one without the other. So actually focusing on that first is the bigger thing. I would say for me, in terms of goals, I'm actually looking at them on my computer screen in front of me now. I have 5 for 2023. I've ticked 2 of them off, technically 3. There's 2 that I won't happen. And the reality with that is having your goals front of mind. And when it comes to goals, I actually think this is the most difficult thing to understand is really, why do you want to achieve a certain goal, right? Because unless you really want something I could put a reason actually. So here's a good example. One of the goals I had down for 2023 was to get 100,000 YouTube subscribers. Now, do you know how much I've done about getting 100,000 YouTube subscribers? Fuck all. Like not a lot. Like I posted like podcasts and stuff, but like barely anything, right? I had 5 goals, and that was the one I did nothing else. Sort of one was a monetary goal, which I actually also won't hit, and then 2 of the goals I did hit. I bought 2 investment properties. I've added at least 4 kilos of muscle tissue, which to some degree I have some control over. But the big thing I think for people to understand is when it comes to goals, I would literally almost just write down everything you want. So what if we look at this objectively, right? So like what physical things I want in my life, like what car do I want to drive, what house or where do I want to live, and then literally write them down and put next to it like when do you want to happen, like 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like what's the time frame that you want to achieve this in. Next I'd be in terms of like, okay, like relationship goals, when do I want to have children, when do I want to get married, when do I, whatever. Like I think that's less important in some respects because you can't really force and control that. Another one would be in terms of like personal goals, in terms of like fitness, like what's the time frames in terms of like my habits that I want to achieve X, Y, Z. And I think when you actually like look at longer term horizons and goals, you actually get better results. Whereas I think most people, the max they'll ever look at is a year. And I tend to think always 3 to 5 years. I actually think as well, in my opinion, I've noticed this. Your entire world changes in 3 years. And I almost have noticed at the moment, I'm going through a big change personally in terms of the way I see the world and maybe what I want. Maybe it's my age, that I'm getting older, that I've noticed my perspective on things have started to change. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand, because the goal you have right now is probably not going to be the same goal you can have in 5 years. And that's okay. What you just also have to understand is a longer term vision of like, okay, if 80-year-old Charlie was sitting here now, would he be happy with what I'm planning to do the next 12 months? Would he be like, that's a really good use of your time if he was advising me? And that's one of the things I really think about. And I do these weird sessions where I sit down with myself once a week on a Monday and literally like I write a question and answer it to myself as if I'm like bipolar, if that makes sense.
That's a good way to do it, to be fair. Self-coaching.
Yeah, because you know yourself, but it's also, I always have it like future self answers it.
I love that. Do you write, like, when it comes to like thinking like that, because I think a lot of times people set goals to the year, and kind of going back to what you said about the why, I think people find it hard to find the real reason why they're doing it. What makes those goals that you've set meaningful?
That's a $1 million question. And that's what I actually said to you earlier in terms of me looking at things differently, of that if we look in the genders, right? So if we look at what drives male behavior, the one thing men want is status. That's what everything fucking runs around. Why do you want more money? Why do you want bigger biceps? Why do you want more followers? Why do you want more people to know who you are? Like status, right? So I've really noticed that the last years, like why does it matter at some point? Like why are you doing all this? To what point? But then I think for me, it's about, I personally just enjoy the process. And I think at that point, it comes down to understanding that your own human behavior and what you like doing and what you're wired to do. So like for me, I like the thrill of the hunt rather than fucking catching the rabbit, if it makes sense. Like I like the fucking chase. Like, I don't know, give an example. It's like, I like chasing the girl rather than sleeping with the girl. Like that's the fun bit for me. It's like, no, you can rather than doing it. Right. So it's like, in a crude analogy, but that's an important thing to understand, because you always need to have something to get you out of bed in the morning. Like, what is your purpose? What's the thing you're set out here to do? And I feel my purpose that makes me truly happy is to help other people and to say, you've had an impact and you've helped my life. But like, that's like a cool thing, because like you're helping other people to achieve their goals and dreams. And whether that's you're helping people get in shape, whether it's you're helping your kids have a healthy, happy life, whether it's you're helping your partner have the family like she's always wanted, whatever that might be. It's quite killer when you actually see like the knock-on effects as well. I think you said this to me a while back, where it was like one of your clients messaged you about how, because he's a doctor and you coached him, and then bearing in mind he's a doctor, he's helping all these other people. So it's like a knock-on effect. So I think that's killer. It's like a compound effect, right? Because I remember during lockdown, like I was always walking. I remember like on my Instagram story, like we were coaching a lot of guys in Manchester at that time, and as part of it, I had like a small team. I don't think I've actually told you, but I remember a lot of people around the area, everyone was like, not many people were into fitness. People were just like sat at home all day, and me just going out for a walk and just sharing every single day. I remember someone came up to me and they were like, yeah, I started walking because of you. And so was my whole family. And then now every single time I'm just hearing people be like, I always see you walking and I've started walking because of you. It's quite cool just to have that small marginal impact. Then during lockdown, it was like someone's mum that came up to me and said, oh yeah, my kids started telling me about your Instagram stories and you're always walking, and he's always going for walks now as well. I was like, that's pretty sick, to be fair. Like a knock-on effect of how other people do it, and you probably don't even know they're doing it, and you don't even realize the impact. So it's quite cool to just see that. And with like social media, I think it's like so sick because you can reach so many people, and like it's just mass scale and everything, whereby other people view it as negative, and it's like it kind of reflects what they don't have and what they're not doing. I think it can be used for your advantage massively. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'd say social media is one of the best things in the world and one of the worst things in the world. And like, not even this sounds arrogant. I was about to say, even I look at it and I get like, oh, fuck, this person's got this person's that, like, which I do. So like, I go on Instagram and I see, I'm like that motherfucker wears Watson's, just bought another Rolls Royce. I'm like, fuck's sake. And or you see like whatever. And that sometimes is a difficult thing for the human brain to understand, because like this also makes you realize that how many other people are on the planet, and that you then end up with this weird scenario. And I actually said to someone the other day, you can't split test life. So I'm in a fortunate position. I can live anywhere in the world I want. I can do whatever I want. Maybe I shouldn't be in Dubai. Maybe I should go move to Miami. Maybe I should move to LA. Maybe I should go live in Sydney. Like, I don't know. Like, and then you always end up this like weird paradox in terms of like what would my life be like if I just moved to like Auckland and did something random? Do you know what I mean? And I think that can go down a lot of rabbit holes. But I think the important thing with social media is just making sure that you follow the right people who give you the right impact and value. And the biggest thing that I'd say I see in particular for people in the fitness niche, there's a lot of people who don't practice what they preach. I'll give you the best example of this I remember, like distinctly, maybe like 2018, like Body Power. I had a lot of friends who were on exhibitions and like superstars in the industry, people queuing up to go and like see him over that weekend for being a fitness influencer, but they're out the night, like Friday, Saturday night, doing cocaine, doing loads of drugs and doing whatever. And you're like, the smoke and mirrors of what really goes on is what people don't really see. And there's very few people who are congruent to what they actually do, if that makes sense.
100%. It's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember, I'm not going to name the person, but they're a fitness coach, and I was speaking to him. I was like, "Oh, how's your training goes?" Kind of fallen out of love with it for the last few years. I was like, "Oh, what are you aiming towards?" "Oh, nothing. I only go to the gym to film content." And it's like you literally said this to me a while back, is if you're a fitness coach, you kind of have to be into fitness, right? And it's like, you kind of got to do the work. And I think in that sense, it kind of reflects in terms of how good their team is doing, how good their clients are doing. Like, one of the biggest reasons I work with you is because like you're living it, breathing it, doing it. And I think a lot of clients, when they work with a coach, they want to see them do the same thing. So like, when I started taking my training seriously, I found a knock-on effect with all our guys and girls. And it's like a case of like, just by giving advice, congruency, you're not just kind of giving like inspirational opinions, but you're actually giving general advice that really applies and it's real world. Because anyone can say, do this for your diet, do that for your diet, but then they're not doing it. And it's like, you're just spitting out bars and just making noise with your mouth, right? So.
And this is the human reality of human nature, right? We often can't take our own advice, which actually, you know what I said earlier, I sit down and coach myself, is because I realized I had a lot of things that I could improve on, which you can always can. I was like, you're a smart guy. Why didn't you just like sit and think and actually like take time to think about this, and you'll probably get ahead a lot quicker, right? And I think the two biggest skills for people to understand, one, theory and practice are completely different. In theory, some things seem like a great idea. Practice, they never are. And then the reality is that like most things are also a lot harder than you think they're going to be. Like the reality is, you think you'll get in shape in 12 weeks, you'll get shredded, and like, but then you got your sister's wedding, and then it's also your birthday, and then like you get COVID or whatever. Like, so give yourself more time than you need. And the same thing applies to business, as things are never as straightforward as they appear. Things will always go wrong. And I also find that with, someone might say to you they're doing X, Y, Z and they're killing it, and it's a really simple strategy, but then they didn't mention the one thing that they also have to do that's really complicated to pull it off, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think also with like, to kind of touch on that and bolder it, is like a lot of people kind of have the arrogance of like, they think they know what they need to be doing and they already feel like they know everything they need to do. I love this as well, because like, did you know Pure Gyms?
Yeah, of course.
So the trainers are horrible. Sorry if anyone's listening, but like, you'll get them do. I remember the first time I went to Pure Gym and I was working there, spinning fuels. There's one of the PT, she had her client do a shoulder press and a leg press both at the same time. So you're extending your elbows and your legs at the same time. I was like, oh yeah, welcome to Pure Gym, right? It's you see things like that, and I literally had members say to me, "Is like, I know more than all the PTs here." I'm like, that's probably holding you back, and it's kind of that scenario where, yes, you may know more, and at the same time, it's like, all right, cool, you have the knowledge, but then look yourself in the mirror, like you're not where you want to be. So maybe you don't know what you actually need to do. So it's
here's a framework for you if anyone listening to this. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
100%.
Because like, okay, if you know it all, then why do you look like a sack of shit and you've been perma-bulking for 20 years? You evidently don't know what you're doing. And like, I actually really like having this really harsh conversation with people on the business front, and I literally will like lay into them. And I think I said this the other day on the call, because it's for people's own good and not many people. And like a job as a fitness coach, that's a fitness client, as well as the same thing, is be like, look, the reality is you're not getting in shape because you're eating the shit your wife's cooking that you shouldn't be eating. Like, she keeps making fucking cookies and crap like that, and you're eating 3 of them a day. Like, if you put the cookies down and you actually stick to the rest of it, you'll see results. Like, you need to get people to cut the crap. And the biggest thing that you'll know as well is that generally the people who may know the most will pretend they know the least, and they also ask the most questions and very inquisitive, and they're always trying to learn. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah, it's kind of like you're almost looking at. Actually, here's probably a better way to actually put that into a story. When I went to that Bali camp, everyone did the exact same training. Everyone did the exact same nutrition. At the end of it, everyone took out something completely different. So it was literally, we lived in the same place, we ate the same, the routine was the exact same. By the end of it, some people pushed themselves harder, some people did more, and they're just very inquisitive and asking better questions. Other people were just coasting through it, and they're like, I'm just going to get from A to B. And it's like kind of like not necessarily, what you do, but it's how you do it. And when you ask the questions, you get to do it better. So I think billion percent with that, because like nowadays it's like if you ask someone now, how'd you get a 7-figure business, they're like, oh, you do this, do that. Oh, cool, have you got a 7-figure business? Well, they know
theory practice, right?
Yeah. So it's I think it's like when you get very curious in terms of how to get the next step, I really like think that solidifies what you need to be doing at the same time, and you won't do something unless you really, really understand why you're going to do it at the same time. So that's a big thing. Something I wanted to dive into, because I know you actually, was it 3 years ago you made this post? And I probably wish I had the story. We didn't even know each other then. And it really stuck with me. It was like, dad bods are people that fill the younger self.
Oh, fuck me. I got so much fucking hate for that. And
it's true though, right?
But this is the world we live in, right? And I'll say it's called a spade, whatever the expression is. We live in a soft world. People aren't willing to accept the reality. Same thing as like Nike stores having plus size models. There's no fucking way that that's healthy to be a plus size model. Like, I appreciate you want to feel confident in whatever you're wearing if you're overweight, right? But the fact is you're still overweight and your body fat's too high. That's shortening your lifespan. There is no definition other than that. And also that's your own conscious choice, because you're not born fat. I know it's a harsh thing to say, but there's no fat people in Auschwitz, which is a proven fact, right? It's like, you have a slow metabolism, you're eating too much. Like, fact. And the reality is we live in a world now where it's like 3rd place medals for fucking everything, like last place medals for everything. It's like we're almost trying to stop people being rewarded for being successful. And this is actually almost, I think, like looks like the tax system in the UK and Europe is like you almost try and stop people being successful because it's not worth at that point. Which is one of the reasons why I moved to Dubai, because I remember like looking at the amount of tax I was paying, I was like, this isn't even worth it anymore, the stress and pressure you're going through. And I think that's where people need to wake up and just realize that no one's coming to save you in life except for your fucking self. Like, people will help you, but you have to put your hand up and be willing to be saved. And like, some people you can throw them the life raft, but some people just won't take it, and they're going to drown. And that's not your fault listening to this as a coach. You can't save everyone. You just, like, the Titanic's going down. You got to get as many as you can on the lifeboats, and those who can't jump on board, then it is what it is.
Yeah, the analogy is strong. Liking that. It's my biggest motivator came from me seeing how other people let themselves go, and I was like, that's exactly what I don't want. And I'm only 25, and it's like you just see people from like where they were previously to where they are now, and it's like you kind of let yourself go. And I don't want to see that from a place of judgment, but it's like there's so much untapped potential in there, and I think a lot of it is environment, but the path that you decide to obviously take. But more importantly, mine is a case of like, I actually don't want to be that. So that kind of sets the path in terms of where I want to be. So for me, it was like seeing people that are actually in sick shape and had like everything together kind of lose it. And I was like, don't want to be that guy that used to be there. So I used to be in shape. I used to do these things, and they were that, and they're not anymore. It's like you kind of hang your hat on that previous achievement. So I was like, I don't want to look back and hide my hat there. I'm like, there's actually more to do. So
I remember someone saying to me as well, not to cut you off, but that you can't be a millionaire and be in really good shape. And I was like, well, and I know where they're coming from, but like the reality is you can do everything to a certain degree. And it just comes down to actually anyone listening to what's the secret, whether it's your fitness or your business, it's coaching. I have a coach for fitness. I've always had coaches helping me for business. I don't really have anyone at the moment, but like I've worked with probably 10 different people so far. Yeah. And that's the key to get ahead really quickly is who, not how. So what's the problem you have? Who can solve the problem? Who's walked the walk? Who understands the theory and also the practice? So like if you're a busy professional and you want to get in shape, then Irtaza's like, he understands that. He can help you. Knowing someone who's actually done the thing, who can actually is relatable to you, it makes a big, big difference.
100%. It's kind of like how you said it one time where it was like they're heading towards the Titanic, they're heading towards the iceberg, and you're like, right, avoid the iceberg, let's go somewhere else. And it's like just knowing the things you want to obviously avoid, and like you can learn a lesson without the scars. So like if you can get the clients to not hit the iceberg, that's exactly what a coach does, right? So it's gets them moving ahead.
And also I think getting in shape is a very, more than people realize, emotional and a personal development process. Like as much as people think it's physical, it's not, because you're not going to like turn up to the gym when you're supposed to if you haven't got the discipline to do it. You're not going to take your stuff to work to go to the gym afterwards if you've not got the organization to do it, and you're not going to like build these habits. And actually something that frustrates me a lot is people say, oh, you shouldn't change too much in one go. I actually disagree. I think you should fucking clean slate and be like, look, Irtaza, this is the person I want to be tomorrow. I want to get in the best shape of my life. I want to completely change who I am. I'm going to put a line in the sand. Tell me exactly what to do, and I'm going to fucking do it. That's the conversation people really need to be having with themselves, rather than mollycoddling around and being like, oh, I'll do an extra 1,000 steps this week. It's like dipping my toe in the water. And it's like, you need to rip the Band-Aid off and jump in with both feet. And the saying I really like is that if you leap, the net will appear. Because like when your back's against the wall and you need to solve a problem, you solve a problem, right? So like if you just go at something all out and you focus it on one day at a time, it will come. And I think too many people, and I see this from a business perspective, like I wake up every day probably slightly overwhelmed, stressed and anxious. And I don't want to get up, and I still just get up and just do it anyway. And I've done that for the last 7 years. And that becomes normal, right? And that's the reality of what you have to do if you want to be really successful and you want to progress. Because if you're happy staying stagnant, then cool, you can do that and you're not going to have to do that. But if you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to seek discomfort and seek pain to do that, which is the reality, right?
It's have you seen that photo of like there's two wolves? One's got one arrow in it, and he's on the floor bleeding. The other one's got 20 arrows and he's still standing. That really like reminded me of that. And like sometimes what you think is hard now is so much easier later, and what's easy now is actually hard later. So that when you choose that hard right initially, it just makes it so much easier later on. It's like kind of like time and attention with anything. Is that time and attention with like how much you can work, how much you can do. Previously, what would have broke me was like an 8-hour working day. Now it's like 8 hours is like the minimum. Like it feels like I'm not working under 8 hours. There's a part of my life where I remember it was I'd wake up at 4:30. Get to Pure Gym, do PT, work from 9 till 5, come back from the PT. I had to get a bike because they can't get stuck in traffic because I had that 10 minutes between things. And it was like, I do 4:30 till 11 p.m. every single day, 7 days a week. Sunday was 10 till 7. Sunday felt so good. It felt like a day off, right? And then now it's like, there's no, like, I don't see it as 9 to 5. I feel guilty if I did a 9 to 5, right? So it's really funny how like your perspective changed because you went through the hard things. And this is why, like, I always say to clients, your first diet is going to be the hardest. It's going to be the longest. It's going to be the most challenging. Next time is so much easier. Time after that is so much easier, right? So initially, it gets better. It gets easier, and people think it gets harder. But actually, you build a skill set to make it better.
You build your stress tolerance, right? The same as building a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets, and it's still going to be painful. And I think the author of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I heard this quote from him the other day, and it said, the most important question to ask is what pain do you want in your life? Like, what are you willing to struggle for? Because anything worthwhile is going to require some degree of pain and struggle. So if you're orientated towards the pain and struggle, you're probably going to be more aligned with what you're capable of accomplishing, rather than if you just orientate towards like the pleasures. So like the more you actually like seek out pain and discomfort and you push yourself and like, this is really fucking hard, the more pleasure you actually end up getting. And it's that paradox of actually delayed gratification. So like doing what's difficult now means you have amazing whatever you want later in your life, or you can choose what's easy and pleasurable now, but the rest of your life is going to be hard.
100%. Have you seen that frequency chart?
No.
This made the world of a difference, and I realized it. I think Wes Watson speaks about it a lot, and it's like you've got a frequency chart, and it's like at the bottom of it is guilt. At the top of it is like joy, abundance, positivity, gratitude, and like working hard. And like when people skip training, there's the diet again, they've got things they need to do, but they don't do it. They're operating at the lowest frequency of guilt because they've not done those things. And that's the lowest frequency you can go into. And like something small as like you said you're not gonna have a drink and you have a drink. Something's like, you know, you said you're not gonna smoke weed, you hang around those people and you feel guilty for doing that. So your frequency is down here and you operate in the lowest state. That itself made such a big difference to like my level of motivation. So like I know for me now, if I don't get work done, if I don't do the things that I say to you I'm gonna do from a business perspective, if I don't get my training in, I'm at my lowest frequency. And like I'm operating from guilt, whereby if I really want to have a better frequency and, you know, match that with the things I want to achieve, then the work needs to get done. So that for me is that if I say I'm going to train at 4 p.m., I'm going to train at 4 p.m. Because I just find like if I don't, after 4 p.m., my frequency is right at the bottom. Is the guilt is the lowest level of frequency. I think it's at 20 hertz or 30 hertz. And it's that diagram. It's worth Googling for anyone listening as well. It's just made such a difference. I've actually got it saved as my like lock screen. Because that.
Do you know how you get confidence in life?
I can throw a lot of answers doing things.
Keeping the promises that you set for yourself.
Oh.
And then also accomplishing stuff and then stacking it up. Because that's how you get certainty, right? Like I used to be really unconfident and introverted when I was younger. And then when you start to like achieve stuff and you start to win, you're like, you've got this track record of all this shit that you've done. You're like, well, I've fucking done all this. I can keep going. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not overly flamboyant, but like I bought like a really nice watch recently, like a Rolex Datejust for his diamond stuff. It's cool. But like if I'm having like a shit day or I'm stressed or like whatever, I put it on and I'm like, you fucking got this. Like you fucking done all X, Y, Z. And like I put, like I've applied for another one, but we put a 2 Comma Club award. Like as I come out of my office, every time I go out, I fucking see it. And I'm like, it's those mental signatures. Like my office, I have one thing is like an American Express $100 million no limit thing. The other one is like a brain, which says it's like a big gold brain split in two, which is like think outside the box. This is all these things are like subtle signals to you, like in your environment you're in all the time of like confidence. You've got this. Because one of the biggest reasons people aren't successful with fitness, business, relationships, whatever it might be, is a lack of confidence. Like no one's ever failed because they've been too confident. Like reality. Like they've been failed because they've been underprepared because they're too confident. But like a reason why a lot of people do fail is because they lack confidence. They don't try. You're better off trying 1,000,000 times than failing, because the more you try something, the more you fail, the quicker you learn. It's that feedback cycle, right? Whether it's like in training about how to do an exercise correctly, whether it's about like what type of diets work for you, whether it's about how to set nutrition so you don't fucking fuck it up and end up cheating your diet. Like
yeah.
I found that really hard for a long period of time. It's like, how do I get out of the cycle of like eating crap food at the weekend? Like legitimately from 21 to 26, like from Friday night till Sunday was like, just eat whatever I want. And I wondered why I never made progress. And that was the one thing holding me back. Interesting.
Here's a question I'd love to hear the answer of is, where do you feel like you lack confidence now, if anywhere?
This is probably not, I'd say I lack confidence. I'd say I lack clarity in my personal life. And what I mean by that is I find it very difficult sometimes to be very successful at business. You have to be very logical thinking, very unemotional, very strategic of like bang, 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 very efficient. in your personal life that you basically want to be the opposite in terms of a personal relationship, right? You don't want to be super
emotional.
yeah. You see, like you don't want to be like super, like my brain is so logical thinking all the time that it doesn't help. And also, I find it difficult to like you can't split test your personal life, right? So it's like that I would say is not a lack of confidence, but I find that difficult to think of where do I want to go in life. But that's probably an age transition I'm going through because I think everything in life changes. I'd say areas I lack confidence is probably. I don't think I lack confidence. I feel like I could do anything now because I have the ability. Do you know what the ability is? And this is the biggest superpower anyone can have. And I actually Sarah referred to it earlier. Is who, not how. So if I wanted to find out how to build a boat in Dubai, I'd just go find a boat person who builds boats and be like, I want you to coach me how to design and manufacture a boat. I'll pay you and I'll work it out. Like I'm coachable and intelligent enough to learn that. And once you understand those principles and you're hardworking, you can literally do anything you want in life. It just depends. Are you willing to like sacrifice and put the time into learning the thing, if that makes sense?
I genuinely believe that's like the secret to anything. Like coaching is like one of the biggest things you have and like the biggest blessings. It's like being able to not have to figure it out by yourself and spend years and years learning how to build a boat, but it's like go to someone else has done that and get there in like a week, right? So I think that's like one of the biggest things we have is like the people that you can connect to, and it's endless in terms of what you can achieve by going to the right person. So that's killer.
What I'd say is more important than that is for people to understand those that we we live in a world where there's more information available than ever. Like anything you want at your fingertips. Like AI will give you the answer to anything. But we don't live in a world of a lack of information. We live in a world of lack of implementation because most people spend so long fucking about like actually doing the work that they procrastinate and they sit on the balcony and do yoga and do stretching. And then they've got to go to the sauna and then they've got to go for a walk for an hour and then stroke their cat or whatever before they start work. That if they just done the thing in the first place, the thing they were like building themselves up to do would be finished. So I think a lot of people procrastinate too much because they're too afraid about slaying the dragon that needs to be slayed. I'd say one of the best pieces of advice you could give anyone is like whatever the hardest thing that you need to deal with every day, deal with it first. And that's one of the things I used to do in my sales job in real estate previously was like whatever the shit task was I had to do that day, I would just do it first. Because then like you've slayed the dragon, that's done, whatever the problem is, the day's going to get easier. Because otherwise you've got the dread of like, I've got to fucking deal with this problem later on.
Yeah. Build upset as like slay the dragon and get the minions rather than get the minions if the dragon gets you. Yeah. It's here's a question I'd love to know because something I got asked recently and it was like, what's the best thing that ever happened to you?
That never happened to me?
Yeah.
I didn't get hit by a bus. That's probably because I'm still alive. The best thing that never happened to me. It sounds weird that I'm about to say this, but maybe winning the lottery, because I think if you're given everything, would you be the person you want to be? Probably not, because you become someone, not from a status point of view, but someone of skills and knowledge and intellect and information who's interesting by actually going through a journey and like having a story to tell of life. And I think if you were just given everything on a plate, then I think that then is a very unfulfilled life. And it's important to have highs and lows, and I've had them, and you can't really appreciate the highs until you've had shitty low days. Like I had some really bad times last year. I think I told you about this, but I got divorced on a Wednesday. Thursday, cleared out my house like I'd spent 7 years paying for and like given everything away basically I owned. And then the day afterwards, I was sitting in a hotel before talking on a big podcast, and my Instagram account got disabled. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And when you have times like that, they're very challenging. That's what then really gives you perspective to appreciate the better times. And life's always going to be a roller coaster, right? Like if it was like flat all the time, it'd be boring and not exciting. And I think this is not something I'm not going to say that because it's not a good thing to say, but I would say one of the big things is making sure that when you're scaling the mountain of whatever you're climbing, that you try and look back and enjoy the view. And for me, like people said to me, you don't do that enough, but it's like, yeah, but I enjoy the climb. Like I like the process of what I'm doing at the moment and the phase I'm in. And when I want to go and sit on the beach in Thailand and drink cocktails and do kickboxing all day, then I'll do that. But at the moment, I'm in the phase where I want to grind, and if that's what I want to do and I enjoy doing, and that's what I'm going to do. If that makes sense. Like, do you? And if someone says to you, you need more balance, then it's like, then maybe you don't need it right now. And like when you want to go and get more balance, like I run to the point where like at the weekend I went to the beach for 2 days and chilled out, stayed at a hotel, and then I'm good for probably another 3 weeks, and then I'll do the same thing again.
Yeah, I think it's like with. It's funny because every time I go away, I always enjoy living here and working as opposed to holiday life. It's so funny because I remember Marbella last year in March was like my first holiday I actually enjoyed for the first time in my whole entire life. And the reason why is because I actually look forward to coming back and doing what I love. But other times I'd be like, oh, I've got to get back on the flight and I need to get back home and get back to the routine.
The dread to go back to work, right?
It's now it's like, sometimes like it's literally so funny. It happens every single time I go away and I'm like, gosh, I just get the same flight home tonight. Every single time. It never goes away. Every time I've been away, I'm like, oh, let's just go back on tonight. As soon as I land, I'm like, I'm here. It's like, because I love the routine of not being away as opposed to being away because there's no escapism. So it's funny.
I think that's good though, because that shows you're fulfilling your purpose and you enjoy what you do, right? It's like I have a day not quote unquote working and I want to get back to work and I'm chomping the bit because I enjoy what I'm doing and I'm very passionate about having the ability to impact and help people and help people get to the next level. And I think when that's your truest value is serving other people, that's when like the best version of you will come out and you'll be the most motivated. Because I've been there before where like I was doing really well, but I wasn't really motivated. I sort of lost my purpose a bit and I was like, not get out of bed till 7:30, 8 a.m. because I was like, I can't, not it was too easy, but I was like, I'm just not, nothing excites me.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to chase in life, then what's the point? Like you get one rodeo at this, so it's like, you might as well go big, right?
1,000,000%. Here's jumping onto a different topic. What's one thing that you've always wanted to speak about but never been given the platform to?
Oh, that's a deep question. One thing I want to speak about, something that comes true to mind is just the weakness that people have in their ability to push themselves and take on the fear of, and what do I mean by take on the fear? I mean, the fear of who you could become, right? So like I speak to people all the time. I'm like, you literally just don't have the minerals for this. You say you want something, but you're not willing to do what it takes. And the reality is I feel like shaking these people because like they don't know what they don't know. And I can see they could do it, but they just don't believe in themselves. And I was that guy until I was like 27. And then when you suddenly start achieving stuff and you start thinking who, not how, you get coaching and like you see behind the curtain of like the way the world really works, you're like, this is bullshit. Like, why is 99% of the population working a 9 to 5? Why are all of you listening to what the government says? Why do you believe everything the news tells you? Why do you believe everything the doctors tell you? The whole world is basically a lie when you conform to what the system tells you. And as soon as you actually learn the ability to think critically and have the minerals to stand up for yourself and actually realize that you can do whatever you want in life, then you can do it. And I think that's the big thing that I feel I haven't probably spoken enough about, in particular to men, is that too many men die having never even spoken about the dreams of what they want to achieve. And I never told anyone what I wanted to do because I was too shy and embarrassed to say what I wanted to achieve. I just went out and did it and then talked about it afterwards. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And I think more people just need to just like, what's the worst case scenario? Like you go and try and do something, it doesn't work, you're back in the same fucking position you were in the first place. You've got nothing to lose. Whereas like if you become successful, you've got a lot more to lose at that point. It's true, right?
Yeah. I think that story about you mentioned this a while back in a podcast as well, so that really reiterates the message. It was like, go try this. If it doesn't work, you'll go back to the previous job. And it's like, cool, we've got nothing to lose. We're still here, but you've done something, right? So it's like kind of backing yourself. I think it's just like, I learned this as well. And I think the start of the year is like trying to set goals that are too low. And I think we spoke about this recently. Is like your goals are too big enough, and having the ability to back yourself and be like, yeah, I'm actually going to be able to do this, and I'm going to find ways how to. It's endless, right? So yeah, I quite look forward.
And it's a compound effect, and the biggest perspective shift you can ever have is just surrounding yourself with people who think bigger and people who are better than you. So like I currently spend my life trying to find people who are ahead of me who I can hang around with, because I'm like, I can learn stuff from these people, right? And it makes me see the world on a different level and think differently. And that's when you see behind the curtain again, like the next curtain, you're like, shit, this is how the world really works. But so many people just don't understand this. Or I think we're almost like scared to, because a lot of people know, but they just don't want to admit. They like put their head under the duvet and like, I'm just going to stay here in the safe 9 to 5 with stroke the cat and pay the tax and live in the grey and rain, rather than go and like live the life I want, if that makes sense.
Films. Have you ever struggled to break like a easy way to say this? So last year, I finally bought myself a nice car for the first time. I've always wanted something that's broken, that doesn't work, because I was like, if I see that every single day, it motivates me to work harder. It's not even a nice car, but it's like it's Mercedes A180, and it's funny because I found it so hard to buy that, because I want something broken that reminds me every single day to work for something. And the moment I got it, I was like, shit, like it feels so uncomfortable having this now. Did you ever have that in any period of your life where you're like...
I tell you what was a perspective shift. When I first moved to Dubai, and then I have like a pretty baller apartment. It's like 3-bedroom, 2,000 square foot, massive balcony, bang in the middle of Dubai Marina, like one of the best apartments you're ever going to see. And you're like, this is where I live. I'm like, fuck me. And I think back to where I came from, and I was working in a shitty little shed in my office. My office was a shitty little shed in my garden, which had like, in the winter was like arsehole cold. In the summer was like beyond hot, because it had like a black flat roof on the top of it. And I think like, that's where I came from. I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, if that's what you can do in 5 years, I'm like, where are you going to be in 10? And I think, I said to you earlier, that's what gives you confidence and certainty, is seeing what you've done previously. And also when things go wrong, is knowing that you'll be able to get yourself out of that position. Because the reality is there's going to be challenges at points, and it's how you dig yourself out of these that's really going to define who you are and the trajectory of your life. And I say the limiting belief for me was that I deserve to have this, and I've worked for this, and that whatever I get next will be down to me deserving it for the amount of people I've helped. Because the more people you help, the more successful you become as a byproduct.
Mm-hmm. Mic drop.
Let me ask you a question. What's been the biggest mindset shift for you?
Since working with you?
Just generally last 6 months. That doesn't have to be related to me, just generally. Because I would say you've changed as a person, because I think I've seen you connect the dots, because you asked me one question, and I just think it was probably a month ago when we trained, and it was like, because you're thinking differently. Because you asked me, do you think I need to focus on my own physique and get a better shape to improve the business? I was like, 100%. And I said to you, which is you said earlier, it's like, it's a personal development thing. You want to become the person who has the business. Because if you become someone so fucking good, you have a gravitational effect. You pull people towards you, right?
Bill, I think it's generally a case of that. It's kind of like taking myself seriously, so other people take me seriously was the biggest thing. And I think having conviction was like the biggest pattern interrupt. Knowing that you're doing it, you're living it, you're breathing it, and actually doing the thing. You're not just saying you do it. Because previously it was a case of like these small little defeats, like snoozing the alarm, saying you're going to do something, not doing it. And it was like these small little defeats in private just led to like a lack of public confidence. And I think that doubling down on that allowed me to double down more than anything else. So I think that's been a case of actually doing things that's going to put me ahead in terms of my own personal self, physique, training, mind, and just these small things like don't work in an office that's completely dirty and clean shit. Like clean your room, then make your bed, the whole those things. I think it's like those little small like private wins has actually led to like a knock-on effect. I think that's been the biggest thing, and just taking myself seriously has been the almost like the rocket, you could say, that's just taking other things to the next level. I'd generally say that. It's
how you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Yeah. it's feeling percent. But no, I think it's most of that is kind of coming up back to like who you speak to and who you're around, and not like sometimes when someone says something negative, I'm like, I'm just gonna end the conversation here. Like Adolfo said something to me the one time we were in Dead or Dawn, like it's a really good little saying was like, you're like a Formula One racer, and like you're not looking on the side to who's watching. You're just going straight, going as fast as you can, and you're not going to get distracted by the weeds. It's just being in the race car, go as fast as you can, not looking to left and right. Like the lady in the red dress, right? It's not looking at the lady in the red dress. It's keeping yourself like keep the main thing, singular focus, and just doubling down on that.
And that's it. And then rinse and repeat, and become the master of that. And then you slay that dragon, then you go find the next one.